Welcome to Afterthoughts, everybody. This is our recommend or refute episode. You know what we do here. We go around the table. Whoever's with us, we ask them what they watched recently, if they'd recommend it or refute it, and hopefully you reap the rewards with your watch list. So I am your host, John Garcia. Joining me on this episode are usual suspects, Ryan King.
I don't know how you hit the or, like I was listening to see, and you just fucking recommend or refute. You just get it right out. I don't understand it.
Just run right through it.
You have to round the R's, Ryan. And the other voice you heard is Michael Dixon.
What's up, guys? Excited to hear what you guys watched this week.
Oh, yeah. Let's get into it. I think I'm going to kick to you first, Dixon. I feel like you have
Okay.
We just watched Singing in the Rain. It's all about, old school Hollywood. I heard you have something classic for us.
Yes, I have some very old school Hollywood here. This is a talkie, but still pretty
100%
early.
a talkie?
It is.
Okay.
From the early days of the talkies. This is a 1933 film called Babyface.
A woman young, beautiful like you can get anything she wants in the world because you have power over men.
Lily, you got to marry me. If you don't, I'll kill myself.
You must use men, not let them use you.
Say, I like it here. How about a job?
Oh, we don't.
Oh, now, don't tell me in this great big building there ain't someplace for me.
Look at that, will you? Sickening the way those two carry on.
Have you had any experience?
Plenty. I know some frats where I come from.
Where was that?
Oh, maybe I'll tell you someday when I know you better.
Wake up, kid. Babyface is moving out of your class.
Babyface is starring Barbara Stanwyck and a slew of men, including John Wayne in a very small role, which I thought was funny. I watched this on Criterion Channel, and it listed like Barbara Stanwyck, comma, John Wayne, comma, someone else. I was like, holy shit, like they co-starred in a movie together? That's wild. I got to watch this. And then I realized he was like a very, very small bit part, but he's John Wayne, so they got to put his name on,
of course,
right up there,
Yeah.
So you'll get saps like me to click on it. But no, I'm very glad that I watched Babyface. Barbara Stanwyck stars as a waitress named Lily Powers. And Lily works at this bar that is run by her dad. And her dad is a piece of shit. And he basically like uses her to lure in male customers.
Whoa.
And it's like she's having a kind of a pretty shitty life. She's sexually exploited by her father and kind of all the people around her. The bar that she works at, everybody's constantly hitting on her and like treating her like shit. But she has this customer that she likes that comes in a lot, and he's an older gentleman, probably a professor of some kind. I don't think they really state what he does for a living, but he keeps telling her, like, you need to get out of here. Like, you need to go to the big city and do something else. Get out of this shit town and go make something of yourself. And she's like, I don't know. What am I going to do? Like, I don't even know what I would do with that. And he gives her a book by Nietzsche and tells her that she needs to, instead of being exploited by all the men around her, she needs to use her sexual feminine power to exploit all the men in her life and work her way to the top and, use her feminine wiles to get whatever she wants. And Barbara Stanwyck, Lily Powers, takes this to heart and moves to the big city, picks out this big skyscraper, and she's like, all right, I'm gonna get a job here. Walks into the HR office at this giant bank, and the guy's like, oh, we don't have any jobs. And she's like, really? For me, you don't have any jobs? What if we go talk about that in this private room over here? And Barbara Stanwyck proceeds to literally fuck her way up to the top of the bank.
Wow.
1933, before the Hays Code. I imagine this was one of the movies where they were like, we have to put a stop to this shit.
There's a problem here.
We can't have women being empowered and sleeping with men to get what they want. This is terrible. So, young Barbara Stanwyck is just kind of literally going up the corporate ladder, and every boss that she has, she is sleeping with him in order to get promoted and to move up. And she'll have situations where she and her boss will get caught like in the company bathroom or something. There'll be a whole scandal about it, and she'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. He came on to me. I just walked into this bathroom. He followed me in here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And she'll start crying.
Oh my God.
And then they'll be like, okay, it's fine. No, why don't you come work under me? And he's like 2 floors up, and the camera like goes out to at the outside of the building and goes up 2 floors to the next apartment and goes in, and like she's literally fucking her way up the building.
Wow.
Over the course of, I don't know, several months, I guess. And John Wayne is one of the people that she just fucks and leaves behind, which is just so against the image that John Wayne would want for himself that it was just hilarious to me to see that. But yeah, I'm like, it was just fucking wild. I couldn't believe that I was watching a movie from 1933 that was that risque. They didn't show any nudity or any of the actual sex, but it's very clear that that's what's happening. And, you know, I've always heard like, oh yeah, you know, pre-code Hollywood has some really, you know, cool risque stuff that, you know, you'd be shocked to see from that time. And I've seen a decent amount of pre-code movies, and I've never seen anything that actually shocked me
It's
until
like that brazen.
Yeah, that like actually was, you know, I guess there's a movie from 32 called Merrily We Go to Hell, directed by Dorothy Arzner, that is about an open marriage, and that was pretty wild, and I was really interested in that. But Babyface is just more openly about sex and about exploitation, and you know, she's like doesn't give a shit about any of these men. She's just like, all right, I have been used my whole life and sexualized and exploited, and I'm just gonna turn that around on society and all of these men in my life. And yeah, I was pretty surprised by it. Barbara Stanwyck is great as always, and was really cool seeing her in a role like that. You know, so many of her roles that I really love, they're in the Hays Code era, and so they have to be a little bit more toned down and suggestive rather than actually doing things like this. Like, you know, Double Indemnity, she's so fucking good in that, but they have to talk around a lot of the things. And this is just like, nope, we're just making a movie about a woman fucking a bunch of dudes and getting rich off of it. So it was pretty wild.
Yeah. Wow. We wouldn't see that premise until the 70s again. So.
John can think of several schlock films that have this exact plot.
How far up the tower is John Wayne?
Like not
3 floors
very.
down.
He's like pretty
very
early on in the building, and she leaves him behind real quick, and he like actually is like pining after her as she's moving along and just going up the chain and doesn't give a shit about him. And like he shows up in one later scene being like,
Listen, babyface, how about having dinner tonight?
I haven't seen you in so long. And she's like, no, we're not doing that. Get out of here. Like, I'm not talking to you anymore.
That's awesome. Yeah, just you describing this movie turned me into Owen Wilson for a little bit there. I was just like,
Oh, what does that
wow.
mean?
I was like,
Wow. 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 Wow.
wow. Like the whole fucking time it just kept, wow. She sleeps with how many men? Wow.
Sounds more like Jimmy Stewart.
What are you talking about?
My Owen Wilson's not great.
Come on. Stop, please. It's embarrassing.
But yeah, where can I watch this? Is this streamable on?
This is on Criterion Channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very interested. I love me some Barbara Stanwyck, and I haven't seen any pre-code Barbara Stanwyck, so sounds like it's a winner.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking to watch. It does get a little repetitive because she's just doing
she
that
has a system
over and over.
Yeah.
She's great at working the system. And there are like, you know, different challenges that insert themselves every time she, you know, has to kind of get away with what she's doing and seduce the next guy and keep moving up the chain. But it's actually pretty funny the way it all strings together. Like at one point, a couple of guys are like all sort of related and like, you know, so there's all of this weird stuff going on, and almost everybody that she leaves behind is like, but I love you, baby, like I left my wife, like come on, like, you know, you need to come back to me. And she's like, I don't give a shit, like I'm up here now, you're down there, I am above you on the social ladder and the in this literal building.
How dare you talk to me?
You can't come up to this floor. So
just amazing. Yeah, were there, so you said you've seen a few other kind of risque pre-code, and this is like the first one that shocked you?
Yeah, this is the first one that I was like, oh, okay, I didn't realize they actually stretched things this far in pre-code. You know, I've seen some pre-code movies where it's like, oh yeah, they wouldn't show that much leg after that, you know, like stuff that's like, okay, yeah, it's, you know, stuff that the Hays Code didn't allow anymore, but the subject matter itself wasn't as blatantly sexual as this movie.
It'd be like hearing somebody say "fuck" in a movie would be like shocking from like that
from the 30s.
precode.
Yeah, there was no profanity in it, surprisingly, but there was a lot of fucking going on.
I think there's like I've seen some like exploitation, like Freaks. It was like precode, but I don't know. Yeah, I haven't really seen something that was like, that like outright.
Yeah,
sexy.
If anybody out there knows of either a silent film or a talkie that has the F word in it, it's from that era, send it our way. We would love to know about
we'll
it.
watch
interesting trivia fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the first movie that ever said fuck?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. In America, I'm guessing it would have been like an independent film of the late 60s, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably a good guess. Or somebody who like said it on air live one time. Like that's like technically film.
Actually, it was Bill O'Reilly. He was the first one.
Well, cool. So that is a recommend for Babyface. Do they ever call her Babyface? Does everybody call her Babyface, or is it just like the title is just
just called Babyface. Yeah,
okay.
I don't remember anybody calling her Babyface. It's possible someone calls her that at some point, but
yeah. Do people ever describe her facial features in it
as baby-esque?
As
no.
big doe eyes and baby-faced?
I don't remember that. Babyface, it sounds like a gangster movie.
Yeah, that kind of has that same.
Yeah, or a boxer or something.
Yeah, it's Babyface McGinty or something. Like, fucking put my money on him.
Oh yeah,
Babyface ran the name.
Babyface ran the underground mafia in L.A. for years during the 20s.
And it's like some fucking like Roderick Babyface Pemberton or some shit, and you're like, okay, sure. Anyways, well, Ryan, what are you bringing for us this episode?
Yeah, unfortunately, I still haven't been going to the theaters or had a time. So I've still not seen the Iron Claw or Aquaman 2, which is probably better.
Which is Aquaman 2, the Iron Claw of movies.
That's why you haven't.
The pressure on you.
That's why you haven't seen the Iron Claw yet. It's because you told us that you agreed with Darla that you would see them at the same time, and your desire to see the Iron Claw has not outweighed your dread of Aquaman 2.
Yeah. I have thought about, on nights I can't sleep, going and seeing Aquaman 2, getting it out of the way.
It over with.
That happened to me with Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Fell asleep in the theater, woke up, and somehow Killmonger was alive, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'm out." I just got up and left.
I do want to place bets right now for Ryan's on a plane and he has access to Aquaman 2 and the Iron Claw. I'm betting Aquaman 2. I don't think he's going to watch the Iron Claw. I think he's going to be like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, we'll find out. I have a flight in a couple of weeks, but I don't think it'll have made it that far yet, sadly.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever. I'll probably end up fucking watching The Flash.
So
no, so I have been watching some superhero movies though, because my family is trying to catch up. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but they're trying to catch up to Infinity Wars and are working their way through the Marvel universe.
Let's track this from the beginning. We start with something pure. Something exciting. Dealing with something new. Yeah. Why stop there? This is it. This is the path I started us on.
Even though I've kind of been trying to talk them out of it, they actually have been going back and filling in everything. And so that includes some of those, the like earlier
the
Phase 2 movies that
all like 35 movies. They're going back and doing them all.
It's only 22.
They're trying to get everything.
Well, there's 30 something of them now.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more
Infinity War
now.
stuff is 22.
Yeah, up to Infinity Wars, yeah.
I we'll talk about it.
Yeah. They're trying to get up to Infinity Wars, and the only thing I've legitimately been able to talk them out of was the Incredible Hulk, because I'm like, it's honestly, it has nothing to do with anything.
It's not even
I only saw the Eric Bana one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
the Ang Lee.
I didn't see the Ed Norton one.
Right when the action started happening in my Eric Bana screening, the film melted melted, and we all left the theater, and I never went back.
That sounds like a much better experience than mine.
It was really cool. The Hulk threw a take right at the screen, and it melted it. That's badass.
Whoa, that's such a cool effect. How did they do that?
How did Ang Lee know we wanted to leave?
Yeah, so yeah, I kind of want to touch on some of those earlier ones. Yes, so we have gone back and I want to touch on Thor 2 and Iron Man 2 because I think really looking back, those and Iron Man 3, which I haven't watched again, but they're downstairs watching right now, and I managed to get out of it.
Congratulations.
Nicely done.
Looking back and watching them, I also remember Captain America kind of being one that I feel like people. The first one was a little bit weaker of the introductions, and I know we have our Kenneth Branagh haters of Thor.
Who?
Some in the room.
Which one of us doesn't like Kenneth Branagh?
Dixon, why are you red?
Going back and watching these, like I am an Iron Man 2 apologist because I like Mickey Rourke and I like Mickey Rourke's whatever stupid shit he's doing in that movie.
You want a bird?
I want my bird.
I can get you a bird. I can get you 10 birds.
I want my bird.
Is this a bird back in Russia?
But I can see where, like, going back and watching it, I'm like, it's not good. And I was trying to kind of piece apart why those fail. But it's interesting looking at them now in contrast to, I don't know, the last 5 movies.
All the movies that have been failing recently.
I was like everything but maybe Guardians of the Galaxy 3 that Marvel has put out as of late that are really kind of just failing at trying to capture the same thing. And it's interesting because they fail in an even different way, I feel like. So looking back at Thor 2 and Iron Man 2, they really miss what the sort of introductory Marvel movies were able to do and really just are trying to kind of fill that gap after the Avengers. And I think part of the reason they were really disliked is Iron Man 3 and Thor 2 are right after the Avengers. And so they're down. There's no way. Like, it was just a down for audiences to come back to that. And so I can see that. But kind of what I've said in the past is, like, I think it's the villains that tend to be the screw up on these. Because it's, if I like ask people, I'm like, John, who is the villain in Thor: The Dark World?
It's like the Frost
the
elves or something. Yeah, it technically is you, the audience. You're the villain of art house cinema.
We're the villains for sitting there and paying money for it.
How could you?
What were they after?
Is it Loki?
Why?
Is
They were
Loki
after
the villain?
like Dark Worlds. They were after the Dark World, obviously, from the title I could tell.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's so muddled and confusing that's what falls apart. And really, the failure, if you look at the simplistic but successful aspect of the early Marvel movies, there's a clear, like, here's kind of our point of the story. Here's the shit that happens. The hero learns this important lesson, and then they're able to resolve because of the things they learned. And we have this contrast between our hero and our villain. Even, I'll be like, Iron Man 1 actually, I feel like, has an example of what I would say is a weaker villain, when it's just I'm literally the same as you.
It's Jeff Bridges.
Ant-Man also does
Iron Man
that.
suit.
Yeah. But you get into Tony and the company and how he realized the horrible shit that they were doing, and he wants to do something better, and he grows up, and how, I don't remember his name. The dude wants to also have his own suit for war reasons.
I will not abide by this Iron Man.
Yeah. There's at least a through line. We also watched Doctor Strange, which was a little bit later after these, but I was like, it has this whole
Doctor
concept of
Strangelove?
time.
You watched Doctor Strangelove? Oh, that sounds so much fun. How did your kids
way better.
enjoy that?
How I learned to stop worrying and love Marvel movies.
Oh, God.
When Doctor Strangelove dropped the bomb on Thanos, it all went down. But with Doctor Strange, there's this time, like, they kind of keep coming back to, like, his watch and time, and the Ancient One, like, talks about trying to draw out time at the end, and how long she's been living. And I was like, there's all this clear, even though it's simplistic, like, through line of, like, what we're talking about here. And I think that's where, like, Thor 2 and Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3, and I would even say, like, whichever one, Ultron or whatever.
Oh, Avengers Age of Ultron.
Oh, I hated that one.
Yeah, I hated that one too. Which has
they
a
all
cool
kind of fail
premise,
because they
but,
don't
like,
hit the landing.
Just fucking Yeah.
Yeah, I think Ultron and Tony Stark's like
Dip into
he's using
fascism
technology
and,
too
like,
much. Yeah, and he's
authoritarianism.
going too far.
Didn't they just
is
decide that,
interesting,
like,
but
wait a minute, what if we, like, took Ultron and turned him into Paul Bettany and then he was good now or something? It was like, what the
That
fuck?
was part of it,
It's
yeah.
so
That
stupid.
was part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
But like that whole argument, I mean, the Civil War concept was cool. It's like, okay, Tony Stark wants to double down on he learned a lesson about his fucking military complex, then decides that it's better to have like complete control and visibility to like govern the whole world. And Captain America's like, that's dumb. Why the fuck would you do that? You're violating civil liberties.
This is a democracy,
Yeah,
damn it.
yeah. Like, hey, I may have voted for the Patriot Act, Tony, but you're crossing the line. But yeah, like that premise is just cool, and I feel like those movies squander it to just be like big dumb slugfest. Not as bad as like, you know,
Right.
DCU at the time, like fucking Man of Steel and that shit. But yeah, it's just like I remember watching Civil War and like some of that stuff in theaters and being like, all right. Like that was like when I first started to be like, okay, there are parts of this where my brain is just going to like tune it out and I'm not going to care. Cause the action is the same. It's like motion blurred fucking CGI people. And oh, now we're in an airport and now we're at a different thing. And it was, just feels like a villain of the week story instead of like, oh, Tony Stark gets kidnapped by, you know, insurgents that he has been funding like military operations to feed. There's like so much more complexity in Iron Man 1 around
Right.
what Tony Stark is dealing with and what he goes through. And then like, yeah, Iron Man 2 is like, check it out. Mickey Rourke has whips. Fucking badass whip dude who's on like a Formula One track. Like, yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, two and three are just like people are trying to steal Tony Stark's shit.
yeah.
And they kind of fail at doing it.
And then that becomes the
And
trend for
that's
everything
about
else. Like even Black Panther was like Andy Serkis is here to steal somebody else's shit. And it's like this constant arms race of like, I'm stealing your shit, or there's an alien that comes from space that has shit I want to steal. And there you go. The cycle continues.
Yeah, and I feel like I was looking at the Marvels and in particular the Eternals, where there is no fucking like lesson learning.
Oh, no.
Like there's nothing where it's like we kind of set something up at the beginning and then we go through these trials and we learn something about ourselves and we use that to overcome whatever the thing is. It is just like action piece to action piece. And like, ooh, some twists maybe here and there, but there
Yeah.
really isn't anything to it. And then on top of it, like watching Doctor Strange, I was like, God damn, the effects work in Doctor Strange is fucking good.
Really?
Like,
Oh, yeah, actually.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
actually.
I forgot how good it is and how crazy and how much like of that movie is like crazy inventive work that I was like, man, somebody somewhere was like, okay, and we are not spending that much on that budget anymore because these all make $1 billion.
Oh,
We don't
yeah.
fucking need to spend that much on digital effects anymore. Just kind of like smudge it for
You know what's
Black Widow.
amazing?
No
is-
one's paying
is
attention.
I know exactly what you're talking about because, like, in the Doctor Strange movie, they have like kaleidoscopic buildings and it looks really fucking cool. And like, I'm sure if you're on mind altering substances, it's like a dude, great kind of movie. But then, like, in like the Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange shows up and he grabs a train and he turns it into 6 trains. And I know what the shortcut code is for that in the digital effects library. You just highlight
Right.
a 3D object
Yeah.
and you make a path and then you make a circle of trains. And it's like, that's the level of effort it's gotten to, is just like, all right, yeah, if I just throw this in there, duplicate whatever.
Yeah,
Don't like hand structure how buildings would do in Inception or some shit.
Right. There's some shit when he first like gets, sees all this other stuff where it's like him being consumed by his own mouth like over and over again. And there's like all these hands that are climbing all over all the
yeah, it's
walls
like real
and then
body
climb up
horror
and pull
shit.
him
And-
down. And yeah, it's fucking really crazy shit. That I was like, yeah, the later, because I watched the other fucking Doctor Strange
Multiverse
movie
of
later.
Madness.
And I was like,
Yeah.
damn, the worlds were boring when they went to the other universes. And I'm like, when he goes to like Dormammu, Dormammu's face is fucking weird and doing all this shit. And he's like this weird universe with all these interesting colors and shit that I was like, yeah, they just don't give a crap anymore. They just fucking
Yeah.
shit him out and don't care. So it was interesting going back and being like, yeah, Thor 2 and Iron Man 2 actually like aren't that bad. I think it was a bit of a slump and they don't hit the highs, that are the things that are good about them. But goddamn, the newer ones like kind of fail on every
so
aspect.
hard
Like
compared.
they digitally miss on it, the character misses on it. There's no theme. The villains, like right, what the villain in the Eternals was like one of
It was
them
a space
kind
baby
of
they
question
needed
mark,
to
and the
abort,
baby that was
right?
going to eat the planet or
Yeah.
whatever, I guess.
Aborting space babies. Operation Abort Space Babies. That was what it was.
Weren't they the villains?
They were the villains. They were
One of
part
them
of the
was-
villains that were supposed to like be seeding the world with those little space
didn't-
babies. That-
Yeah, didn't Rob Stark like kill a couple of them? Something like that.
Yeah, there's some shit like that. But then, yeah, it's just one, you said there's no lesson with the Eternals, but I think we all learned a lesson when we watched it for the podcast. And that lesson was you really just can't, no director can save whatever the fuck a Marvel movie's going to be. That was the-
I was going to
that
say
was the
don't
end
have
lesson.
14 main characters.
Oh, there was that too. And the first Marvel movie with a sex scene that is basically like a Lifetime original sequence, I'm sure. So it's just like, wow, really setting the mark here. A lot of milestones for Marvel. Cool. So that's a refute or recommend?
Yeah, it was just like it was it. Well, actually,
Yeah, what did
think
you even just
the
say,
older-
What the
Ryan?
fuck
What are
was
you
any
even-
of this for?
What are you even doing here?
Yeah, I think I was going back to like I do feel like
Oh,
a
there
lot of those first MCU movies are really good and do hold up. Even the effects work because they were doing better, and that like the shittier ish ones are not that bad compared to just the lack of heart in these later ones.
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you there, Ryan. They all suck.
They've always lacked heart.
They've always sucked. That is Dixon's. That's Dixon's
Yeah,
political platform.
that's his secret. They've always sucked.
Yeah.
He's-
People
yes.
are just now realizing it, but they've always
See,
been this
his
bad.
secret is he's always been angry about Marvel movies. Okay, so I'm still not hearing like a full. Is that just a refute or like is that a fucking soft recommend for?
Yeah, I think it's a soft
Marvel?
recommend for the
Pre-Infinity War?
for the pre-Infinity Wars.
Okay,
Is
sure.
Infinity War the turning point?
Yeah, honestly, because like Ant-Man and the Wasp is like okay, because that comes out between.
And
I think
Endgame
Captain
is-
Marvel's good.
Endgame is garbage.
fucking just
but Endgame does start to get weak.
It is
Yeah.
when
Endgame
it is the
does start to
turn.
get weak.
Yeah, Endgame was when
Yeah,
they should
and
have
then
stopped.
and then it's absolutely after Endgame, it's down. It's just down. It's been down, and they just don't. They don't know what to do. They're flailing in the wind. But even within it, it's like if you could make a good movie anyway, like that would be something. I really enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and I think that was we had characters. They've already cheated really good characters through several movies into those, and it did have that like important plot elements and themes that carried through and were relevant to the end.
Yeah. Well, cool. That's a recommend for everything that comes before Infinity War. Are you going to try to stop your family at Infinity
Just
War and not
Mickey
show
Rourke.
them Endgame? Because that would be a fun, devastating thing to try.
Yeah, they'll be like, "That's it."
There you go. Sorry, kids.
That's how
No
it
more
ends.
movies. Don't
They're
worry
like,
about
"Wait
the
a minute,
rest.
we saw Spider-Man come back."
No,
No,
you didn't.
no, that was different.
On the bright side, we've solved climate change.
Yeah. All right, kids. If you want to go forward
gotta
from
have to
here,
be
you
one.
have to watch Venom: Let There Be Carnage.
Yeah, then see what you think of that. See if you can stay awake during out there.
All right. Well, cool. That is, yeah, there we go. I will round us out here. I haven't had a whole lot of time to watch movies, and what I have watched is mostly bad movies, just with friends.
What? John.
Oh,
So
John.
shocking. I know.
So out of character for you.
But I did get this hankering to watch Inherent Vice.
If it's a quiet night out at the beach and your ex-old lady suddenly out of nowhere shows up with a story about her current billionaire land developer boyfriend and his wife and her boyfriend and a plot to kidnap the billionaire and throw him in a loony bin,
I need your help, Doc.
maybe you should just look the other way. But if you're Doc, it may all start to get a little peculiar after that.
Michael Z. Wolfman.
And Mickey Wolfman.
Mickey Wolfman.
Has vanished.
So where would I find him?
He's technically Jewish, but wants to be a Nazi.
And a girl don't necessarily want to get into difficulties with those folks.
Whoa.
Are you all right?
Am I?
Are you?
Ordinarily, we're the ones asking the questions.
And your question is, which side am I on?
Good question.
Wrong answer.
I don't know what pushed me to it, but I remember I saw that when it came out in theaters. It came out in 2014. And for folks who don't know what Inherent Vice is, it's a Paul Thomas Anderson film that is an adaptation of a Thomas Pynchon novel that is known to be very dense and confusing. And it's one of those things.
It has Paul Giamatti in it, doesn't it?
It does not have Paul Giamatti in it.
No, it doesn't? Okay.
No.
Joaquin Phoenix is the lead.
Yeah,
Is
Joaquin Phoenix is the lead there. And it has Josh Brolin, and it's just got like a star-studded cast. Like, it's pretty amazing. But that's kind of what you expect from a Paul Thomas Anderson film. I remember when the trailer for this came out, it was like just a collection of words that I don't even really know how to parse. It's like, what if I told you that this guy was trying to find out about this man and his old lady, and his old lady has a man, and there's another thing in it, and it just like fucking goes. And the movie is the same, and the trailer really leads you to believe that you could follow it. But this is like an ultra noir. It just set in like 1970, right after the Manson family murders, and it's like hippies everywhere. And Joaquin Phoenix plays Doc Sportinello, I think is his name, or Sportello. And it just is like, he's a detective who gets high all the fucking time. And his ex-girlfriend comes to him in the middle of the night, like at the very beginning of the movie, and basically says, the guy that I'm dating is a real estate mogul, and his wife and her boyfriend are plotting to have him committed to an asylum, and I want you to try to stop this plot. And that's like as simple as I can make that, but the movie itself it just feels like it was adapted directly from the novel. It's just so densely written in the way that the characters talk and deliver their lines. Like, it's more so than, it's not rapid fire dialogue like Aaron Sorkin, but you can think of it like Double Indemnity's sort of narration. And when I saw it in theaters, I left and I didn't know what the fuck happened for the entire movie. And I was just like subconsciously was like, I liked it, but I don't know if any of it checks out or any of it like matters or what the fuck it was. Like, is this a Big Lebowski situation where it didn't matter and the mystery wasn't the point, but like the characters themselves are so hard to track and like so many fucking proper nouns flying around. So I decided I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna watch this again. I own it on Blu-ray and I still haven't watched it when it's on Blu-ray. And
you diagrammed the whole thing.
And I basically, so Sasha watched it with me. She was like, I was like, you want to watch a movie with me? I'm just going to try to watch Inherent Vice. And she was like, okay. I remember not knowing what the fuck happened in that movie. And when we were watching it, she was audibly like, pause the movie right now. And then she was like, so did this happen when this person came in and this other person had something? And like, what the fuck is Doc talking about? And we did
And then
that.
you're like, no, see, this is what I drew. Here's all the people
that's basically, I was
involved.
like, here's my Charlie Day board with my red string and all the faces. And it was just like, I've never had a movie experience where I was so happy to pause the movie and be like, I understand what's happening. Like, I'm able to talk to somebody about this.
Yes, I will mansplain this movie to you.
Absolutely. I'm getting an opportunity. But yeah, like it was one of those where I remember seeing it with friends and they didn't know what the fuck happened. We didn't go and talk about it after. And even if we did, we wouldn't have made heads or tails with it. But the second watching, it was like, I didn't have to focus as much on it. It has that noir quality where you're like, okay, I know who everybody is and I know how the story's going to go. And now I can just soak it up. And it's so fucking funny and has so many great moments. And like when Hong Chow shows up in it, it's fucking great. She shows up as like part of a woman's massage parlor. She's telling Joaquin Phoenix about the Pussy Eater Club special. And then immediately she just starts eating pussy like in front of him. And like, that just fucking doesn't go anywhere. And it's like fucking weird, wild shit happening everywhere. And it feels insane. And it's like watching a noir where the detective took one case and then has to take like 8 other cases in the middle of that case. And it just fucking goes from there and then neatly wraps up so much of it by the end. But if you're a first time watcher, you're not going to know what the fuck happened. So it's like, I don't even know if on a first go round, I wouldn't have recommended it. Honestly, it's like, it's so complicated and I'm just like, not sure how people would feel. But if you're down to watch a noir and watch it multiple times, it's really fucking good. And it's really fun. So I don't know. That was my takeaway. The second time was like, I would recommend it, but only if somebody's willing to watch it twice. Like, watch it once. It's probably not gonna. Although I do have my own pitch for it. Dixon, have you seen Inherent Vice? Or...
Yes, kind of same scenario. I saw it in theaters and was confused as fuck and have not gone back to it.
Yeah, so like I have this idea, and I know it's not for everybody, but it is to just get baked and get a screenshot of every actor in the movie and the red string and cardboard.
Oh, that's
and do
great.
a watch party where everybody who's baked has to try to follow along and put the faces and string where they think it should go. Yeah. That would be pretty fun. But yeah, it's just like second viewing, great, because you can start to put more of it together, and it still feels like you're doing a lot of mental work, but it was fun. It's a different film experience for me. Other ones like Double Indemnity, after I've seen it the first time, like I know where it's going and it doesn't feel hard to follow. Mm-hmm. This one still like fights you all of the way. And there's something endearing about it for me that I really like. But yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I would love to go back and rewatch it. I really like Paul Thomas Anderson, and I saw that one once and I haven't gone back to it. And like now that I've seen a lot more noir, I feel like I would appreciate it more. Like not only 40s, 50s noir, but neo-noir. Like I've seen The Long Goodbye now, which is like that type of a noir where it's like nothing really matters. Like the PI lead is kind of a shithead who just, is kind of trying to figure his own stuff out and also solve this thing, but it doesn't really matter. And it's, noir is often more about style than anything else. And Paul Thomas Anderson can definitely craft an interesting style in his movies. So I definitely want to go back and watch it again. I feel like I would appreciate it a lot more now, where, like a lot of noirs, the plot is kind of the point, but sometimes it's not, right? And like, with The Long Goodbye, it's like, it doesn't really matter. You're just kind of there soaking up that atmosphere and watching Elliot Gould be cool, and that's kind of what it is, and like I imagine it's a similar experience with Inherent Vice, but it sounds like you felt like you gained more from the plot this time, and it wasn't just I'm appreciating the style, but you did engage with the story on a deeper level this time.
Yeah, like the first time through, I felt like a lot of what happened it felt like Sound and Fury. It was just kind of like, and then this happens, and then this happens. And it felt so disruptive that by the time I got to the end of the mystery, like, I think that the mystery that gets solved, there's like 2 tracks of mysteries, and one of them gets solved before the other one. And it feels like the energy of the movie shifts a bit, at least the first time you're watching it, because you're like so fixated on where's this like real estate mogul, and that wraps up like earlier than expected. And then it goes right into this other thing. And you're like, okay. But the second time through, when I knew that was going to happen and I could anticipate it and I could follow the characters more and I knew what the relationships were, it just like everything clicked a lot more, and I was picking up the pieces and it doesn't really hold hands too well with you, like to help you know who's doing what crime and when, and characters like appear in a scene and then they're dead off screen in another scene, and has that kind of like, I guess like No Country for Old Men kind of had that like cut from out under you kind of feeling. And so it just has that. And this time around, yeah, deeper appreciation for it, deeper appreciation for like the relationships within it, because they all feel so quirky and weird and like so crafted by a particular author, not like organic. And I think going into it, I just had to expect it this time around. Like noirs are crafted. A lot of them are like very heavily written. And this is one of those, but done in this like 60s or 70s haze of weed and everything. And it just adds to how fucking weird it can be and feel like the disorienting feeling. But yeah.
Yeah. Thomas Pynchon is weird, and it's a lot to take in. Yeah. Inherent Vice is the approachable, I guess, of his works. And it is still quite a bit. So he's in that postmodern novel writing, which is just kind of a weird metatextual thing. And I would say that like with Inherent Vice, kind of just like playing with noir and detective stuff and like using that and almost somewhat like I don't know, he's kind of metatextual to like what it is. Like if you come in knowing detective and noir, I do feel like it works better. And yeah, it is one of those things where it's like things happen because it's more about writing and those kind of stories. So yeah, like talk about like characters or things that happen away from it. It's more an exploration of like, that's like life, not like writing.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what's kind of the interesting thing to look at. It makes it confusing.
Yeah.
But also that's like life.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's an interesting. I do feel like, yeah, as I approach more of his stuff, it gets better. But like Gravity's Rainbow is his big novel, and it's like a mess. It is pretty fucking dense and weird. It's not to Finnegan's Wake like nonsense, but like his stuff is quite out there.
Yeah, and I just remember when this movie came out, people saying like, "Oh, Paul Thomas Anderson is like attempting the impossible. This is like one of those things that's going to be like really fucking hard to adapt properly and to get like everything right." And I feel like he nailed it. But it's one of those things where like, because he nailed it, the film reception probably suffered, is my guess. I don't know, because I don't really hear about it when people talk about Paul Thomas Anderson films. Like Inherent Vice isn't at like top of lists for people I've talked to. They tend to like other works like There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread or Boogie Nights. And like Inherent Vice kind of gets like off to the side. But it nails it so well, and I'm so appreciative that Paul Thomas Anderson went to the effort to like make it the way that he did, without like, it has overwhelming exposition, but none of that exposition feels like it really holds your hand and does anything effective to tell you a story, other than like it tells you a very flowing and flowery version of what's happening, and you're like, okay, it's like poetry while you're watching something, while you're watching a noir, and it's just nice. I don't know if Thomas Pynchon writes that way. I'm really interested to read his works, but I haven't touched any of his books. So
I think you're right. Like Paul Thomas Anderson, Boogie Nights is like, I mean, it was a big hit, and it was very approachable from a lot of different angles. There Will Be Blood is like just a technical achievement.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he really upped his game. Like he had the opportunities that earlier movies had let him get to. And then There Will Be Blood was the sort of like, okay, not only can he bring people into the theaters and make some pretty good stuff, he can make some fucking transcendental, like award-winning, amazing stuff that he can get out of it, of his actors as well. And yeah, I think Inherent Vice was kind of his like swing, right? Of like, all right, now I can do what I want. And his take at it. And honestly, now he's just doing what he wants, but I feel like he's kind of brought the scale down quite a bit.
Yeah, he seems to have focused more on like technical approach now. Like with Phantom Thread, he did the full cinematography for that movie. And like, I don't know if he tried to do that for Inherent Vice or if it was more, he just wanted to focus on as like bursting at the seams of a story as possible, like however many characters fit into it, and see if he could make it cohesive. And I feel like Paul Thomas Anderson always just is like looking for some shit to get into. He's like,
Magnolia is kind of like
myself?
that, right?
Yeah.
Where there's just so many characters in it, and there's so much stuff going on that like some of it works really well, and other parts of it like kind of don't land super well. But yeah, and he has these smaller scope movies like Punch Drunk Love that's like fucking great, you know, and like Phantom Thread is just about 3 people basically. And yeah, he has such an interesting career. Like I love The Master, and I think I've seen all of his movies except Hard 8.
Yeah, I haven't seen Hard 8 either.
Yeah, right. Magnolia is another one that is people are kind of up and down on.
I love the idea of Tom Cruise as a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
We've seen how great he is at that.
Being a Scientologist, when you drive past an accident, it's not like anyone else. As you drive past, you know you have to do something about it because you know you're the only one that can really help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that he's always just looking for a new challenge, something to do, and I admire that about him. But I also am reminded that he's in that Tarantino-esque, like that he's in that Tarantino auteur class of director where I've heard like different stories about people working with him. I can't remember who's a celebrity that had a late night out with Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson, but she said that it completely turned her off from ever doing cocaine again because they just did cocaine and talked about movies for like hours. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I love both of those directors, and I think that they bring really fun things to cinema. But yeah, I don't know if I would want to be in a room with either of them. I don't know if I'm ready for whatever the conversations are that they can just churn through. But yeah, anyways, Inherent Vice would recommend. So with that, I think we bring this to a close. I have been your host, John Garcia. We have a roundtable of recommends. Ryan's a little iffy though. Ryan, he's making a face right now, but he did say recommend.
Well, he didn't even really talk about a movie. You know? He decided to give a rant about Marvel.
You know, he did an unprecedented thing, which was he tried to cram movies into the television category by saying it was a series of things that he could recommend.
Honestly, Marvel movies feel like a TV show.
It is, yeah. So we have a recommendation from Dixon for the precode Babyface, starring Barbara Stanwyck and
John Wayne makes an appearance. Yeah, as just a random fuckboy, which is hilarious.
And then we have a recommendation for the Marvel movies of the Infinity War saga, but nothing after that. Which is
you can honestly just slide after that.
You're such a fucking weird maverick renegade about these rules, Ryan. And
he didn't even stick to that. He was like, well, you know, Thor: The Dark World's not great, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is pretty good. And
it's what happens when you have a family, people. You don't have time to go watch other movies. You have to make something happen.
What I got.
So you just watch 10 Marvel movies instead.
That's right. Not one of them was.
Look, I'm finally not watching the crappy kid movies on Netflix. It's a huge step up to watch Thor: The Dark World.
He says that now, folks, but mark my words, in December, he's going on a Jennifer Garner marathon. He's going to report back. I see him thinking about it. Oh, God. And then you have a recommendation from me for Paul Thomas Anderson's Inherent Vice, which I feel gets a bad rap or no rap at all, considering I haven't heard much about it from other folks.
I feel like critics look back on it fondly, but the broader discourse doesn't really talk about it much.
Yeah. So, anyways, with that, I've been your host, John Garcia. Joining me, as always,
Ryan King. I want my bird. It's the Iron Man 2 thing.
That was for all those Iron Man 2 fans out there. He's serving
just
up
wanted that.
Fair enough.
It's a good bird. We went all the way to Russia for you. We got this bird. It's a great bird.
No one knows what you're talking about, right?
He wants us to clip it into the episode. We might do it. Who knows? If we don't, then, it's too much work. Sorry, Ryan. And also joining me,
Michael Dixon. Thanks for putting up with our bullshit.
And Ryan's bullshit.
Gonna leave that in.
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.